In the meantime, new reaction from Donald Trump this morning after having a reporter tossed from his news conference in Iowa last night in what has become a major dust-up over his immigration plan. This was the scene as Univision's Jorge Ramos was escorted from that news conference. And we'll have that for you in just a moment. Good morning. I'm Greg Jarrett in for Bill Hemmer here in America's Newsroom.
And I'm Heather Childers. Nice to be with you today. Shaping up to be a busy one. I'm in for Martha McCallum. The moment was heated when Univision host Jorge Ramos, he started asking Donald Trump some questions about his immigration plan. And here's what happened. Listen.
Trump has a question about immigration, your immigration plan.
Okay, who's next? Yeah, please.
Mr. Trump, I have a question.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down.
No.
Sit down.
No, I'm
Sit down.
an immigrant.
Go ahead.
I have the right to ask the question.
No, you don't. You haven't been called.
I have the right to ask the question.
Go back to Univision. Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million.
Go ahead.
You cannot deport 11 million people. You cannot build a 1900
Go ahead.
wall. You cannot deny citizenship to children.
Sit down, please.
Ideas.
You weren't called.
I'm a reporter and don't touch me, sir. Don't touch
Go.
me, sir. You cannot touch me. I have the right to ask a question.
All right, that reporter, Jorge Ramos, was eventually let back in. Donald Trump did answer his questions. Trump this morning, though, questioned about the incident on the Today Show, and as usual, no apologies, no backing down.
He was totally out of line last night. I was asking and being asked a question from another reporter. I would have gotten to him very quickly, and he stood up and started ranting and raving like a madman. And frankly, he was out of line, and most people, in fact, most newspaper reports said I handled it very well. He was totally, absolutely out of line.
Carl Cameron is live for us in Iowa. So, Carl, you were there, front row, when all this went down. How did it happen?
Well, the first question came to me, and I asked it. We'll get to that topic in a minute. Then he went to Chip Reid of CBS. And before Trump actually identified Chip Reid as the next question, Jorge Ramos got up out of his seat and started asking questions. He wasn't screaming. He was tempered in his delivery, but he was very insistent. And you saw the exchange there. And he was ejected. Trump sort of signaled to one of his security guys, who you see walking across and taking him out of the room, and made it clear that he wanted Jorge ejected. But reporters immediately after that began asking Mr. Trump a series of questions about whether or not he'd handled the situation well, or if he thought perhaps he'd mishandled it. And that's when Trump said, well, I'm perfectly happy for the guy to come back. And staffers then went out and retrieved him and got him back in. Not the first time that Donald Trump has argued with the reporters. Not the first time he's argued with anchors. And Jorge Ramos is obviously one of the best-known Mexican-American journalists in the country, and Univision has a huge audience in Latin America. So this is going to have some fallout. And when Mr. Trump got back, they had an additional exchange. It was a lengthy one. It went about 5 minutes, and it was very clear Trump was frustrated. Watch.
How are you going to report 11 billion?
Here's what we're going to do. Ready? Okay.
Are you going to bring the army?
No. Let me tell you. We're going to do it in a very humane fashion. Believe me, I have a bigger heart than you do. And the one thing we're going to do.
Rights violations will be all over the place.
One question? Is there one question you want to ask? We're going to move on.
Okay. The one thing we're going to start with immediately are the gangs and the real bad ones. And you do agree there are some bad ones. Do you agree with that, or do you think everyone's just perfect? No. I'd ask you a question. Do you agree with that? We have tremendous crime. We have tremendous problems. I can't deal with this.
Trump showed strength, argumentativeness, willingness to stand his ground. A lot of voters love that, and some obviously take a very different view. We'll send it back to you in New York.
All right. Thank you so much, Carl Cameron.